Tonight I'm going to do cube steak and French onion rice, and it's basically you take the stick of butter rice recipe and cut up cube steak and add it to it and cook it down, and it's absolutely delicious. I'm probably going to throw in a little bit of Kinder's buttery garlic seasoning just for some added flavor. I've got my oven preheating to 425, and we're going to spray this casserole dish, and trust me, you want to spray it. This stuff sticks. Of course, I moved it. There we go. Without spraying the whole house. Okay. I am going to do so the basic recipe for stick of butter rice is 1 cup rice, 1 can beef consomme, 1 can French onion, and a stick of butter. I'm going to do a recipe and a half. So we're going to do 1.5 cups. I've got a 1/4, so I'm going to do this one twice. I want this for lunches, for leftovers this week. We do like this. That's kind of why. Get a spoon. Now, I'm going to do 1 can of the beef consomme. It's thicker than beef broth. So if you use beef broth, it's fine. Just know that this stuff's a little thicker and a little richer. And you might almost want to add a little bit of beef bouillon if you're just using beef broth. And that's the 2 cans of the French onion. And we're just going to give this a mix. And this is what's going on the bottom, per se. I'm going to float the meat, and this will all cook. But I put it in a 9x13, so I had plenty of room. And I want the rice to be spread out, because we want it to cook. Now, the only thing I'm really not adding extra of, a lot of times it calls for an entire stick on the 1 cup of rice, and I'm doing 1.5, but I'm not going to add any extra rice. Normally, I don't even do the whole stick of butter. I usually do at least half. I feel like just too much, and I like butter. So I've cubed up all the meat into kind of bite-sized pieces is what I've ended up doing. That's 2. And with this, I'm just going to use the Kinder's buttery garlic, but you can use whatever seasoning you want. And I'm just going to give this a little bit. I feel like it'll all go nicely together. Now, when the boys are home, I have to double this. And this is also the easiest way. Grab your hands and just put the meat in. This way it gets evenly distributed. Where you saw I went in and made sure I got all the rice stirred in and moved around. Okay. Now when the boys, like I said, I used to feed this to the boys. You don't actually have to cut these up into that size pieces. I did that so I could only cook like 4 or 5 of the cube steaks so I could get it to feed them. I could have left this whole pieces, the 4 whole pieces, because it's my husband and I. But I've just been making this so long, this is kind of how I do it. Those pieces are smaller over there. And the final bit is we are just going to wrap this up in aluminum foil. And we're going to bake it at 425. The recipe says to cook it for 30 minutes covered, 30 minutes not covered. Every time I have tried to follow it, I don't like it as well because the top rice gets crunchy. Maybe that's how it's supposed to be. So I'm going to cook this the way I normally do, and I'm going to leave it covered for 50 minutes, and then the last 10 minutes I'll uncover it. Also, I check it in between, which you're really not supposed to do, just to make sure there's enough liquid. So, and a lot of times the whole premise of leaving it uncovered for the 30 minutes is to cook the liquid down. I've always had enough liquid in this, so it's never been a problem. And here we go. I just pulled it out of the oven. I know it doesn't look like much, but this is absolutely delicious. And it was so simple. You really have to try this. And I just threw a can of seasoned green beans, and we're calling this dinner. Thanks for joining me tonight. Tonight I'm going to do Crunch Wrap Supreme Casserole. We've done the Crunch Wrap Supremes before. My boys really liked them, but for the convenience of the casserole, so that way it's easier to make since other people might not be eating this at the same time I am. Anyways, I've got the Mission Hill Carb Balance ones are the ones I like, but you can use regular flour tortillas. I've got a bag of the tostados. The recipe calls for 2 pounds ground beef, but I'm going to half this tonight. So I'm just doing 1 pound of ground beef, some cooking oil, sour cream, and onion. This is Old El Paso's creamy queso. I know my husband will finish it, so it's not a big deal. I've got some cheese that's already shredded. This is the only thing I'm changing. I'm going to add in a layer of pinto beans. I don't have any refried, but these are pinto beans I made myself in the crock pot and then froze, so we're just going to add those in on the bottom layer. 1 tomato. I've got all the seasoning, and it's just cheaper this way, but you can use a taco seasoning packet. I always say that. And then some shredded lettuce for the top. And I also have already preheated my oven to 350. I'm going to cut up the onion and get the ground beef cooking, and I'll bring you back after I do that. I've gone ahead and heated the refried beans and mashed them a little bit, and I'm letting them cool. I've got the ground beef cooked, and this is where you would just add your seasoning packet. I'm, of course, gonna season it myself. I look at it this way. If you've got all the seasoning in the house anyways, you might as well use it. And I feel like once you've done it a few times, you can eyeball it. You'll know what you like better. I always like the taco seasoning packets that had extra cumin in it, and what I found is not too many of them make it that way. So this is chili powder. The other was smoked paprika. So let's get the chili powder in, and finally the cumin. And this is what I like a lot of. I think I just like the smoky flavor of it. Now I've still got this pan on the stove, and I've just drained the ground beef, and we're just gonna lightly heat up the seasoning. And all that really does is it just makes it more fragrant and gives the flavor all through the meat. You could add a little bit of water here. I'm trying to not have these too runny because they are going in crunch wraps. That's all we're gonna do, and we're gonna let this sit and just sit for a few minutes, and we're gonna get everything else ready to go. We're only doing half the recipe. It called for a 9x13, and it called for 4 flour tortillas on the bottom, so I'm just doing 2, and I have them so they're up on the sides just a little bit. It did not call for refried beans at this point. I decided I was going to add them. So these are homemade pinto beans I've made, and I just heated them up and smashed them, which is all refried beans are. going to get this down at the bottom. I have greased this baking dish, and I do have my oven heating to 350. So we're going to get that in there, throw that over there. Now we are going to add in the tomatoes. Get these in there evenly if you can. We're going to add in the creamy queso. That's all I did. Add in the sour cream on this layer. And this is all by preference, so leave out what you want, put in what you want. We're going to take these and we're going to put them in here. I'm trying to figure out, probably, some of them are broken, so that'll work out well for us. Take some of the broken pieces, because I do want a whole layer of this. That should work. See how I've just got that? And like I said, this is, I'm doing this in an 8x8 instead of a 9x13. This is where you're going to add in meat. Get this down in here. Add in a layer of cheese. This is just what I had in the refrigerator. Just a different way to have taco night. And then we're going to cover it with flour tortillas. I'm trying to think of how I'm going to do this. I think we're going to lay the one there. And this one, I'm just going to cut up into fourths. There we go. Have to remember to get it in the right way. And the final piece, because you want it to be crunchy, you're going to spray this with cooking spray. As I said, we're going to bake this in a 350 oven for about 30 minutes. And I just pulled this out of the oven. And I think I'm just going to cut it right down the middle. Just to make it easier on me. And then I'm going to come over here. Put it in. Grab a spoon or a spatula. It doesn't want to come out. Not that it's stuck, I just didn't get it cut all the way down. Hopefully I did. I'll try this again. Okay, I got it unstuck. So there's our layers. See how that looks. Now all I'm going to do is we're going to top this with some more sour cream because I like sour cream. And if you don't buy this in the squeeze tube, I do, because of the fact that it lasts longer. I find that it lasts longer. It also stays fresher. But that's just my own personal opinion. But you can always put some sour cream in a Ziploc bag, cut the end off, and you've got a way to squirt it in if you want to. And we're just gonna throw some lettuce on top of this. And that's dinner tonight. Thanks for joining me. We're going to make fish sandwiches tonight, just something really simple and basic. Ooh, sorry. I've got 2 nice sized cod fillets. This one's thicker, so I'm going to probably push this down. I've got some buns. We've got an egg, some flour, Parmesan cheese, panko breadcrumbs, and then I'm going to season it with some buttery garlic and herb and slap ya mama. And then we've, of course, got some either olive oil, but that's avocado oil. I've also preheated my oven to 400. You could pan fry this in a shallow fry. You could put this in the air fryer. I'm just going to throw this in the oven for a real simple dinner. I've taken the fish and I have patted this dry. I have a plate with some flour. I've also whisked the egg. So into the flour, we're going to season with some buttery garlic and herb. We're going to throw some slap ya mama in there, just for some flavor, not a ton. And that's all we're going to do to the flour. The breadcrumbs, I always buy the seasoned, just because it has flavor. And it already has some Parmesan in it, but we're going to throw some more in it, because it can never have too much. And I'm also going to throw just a little bit of slap ya mama in this. And as you know, I don't like spicy, so it just adds flavor. It really doesn't add heat. And then we're going to throw in some Parmesan into this. And it already has some in it because it's the seasoned, but I'm adding some more. Give this a stir. Okay. And then we're just going to do a very simple dredge. So I'll start with the small one. We're going to put it in the flour. And these were previously frozen cod fillets. I live in Indiana, so having cod isn't something that's possible. Then we're going to put it in the egg. And this just works as a binder. And then finally, you're going to press it into the breadcrumbs. And I'm going to make a mess. We're going to put this on a baking sheet, and then I'm just going to repeat this. Once we get them to this point, all we're going to do is take your cooking oil and carefully, without spraying it all over the place, spray it with some oil. And this is just going to help brown it when it goes in the oven. So my oven is at 400. I'm going to test these for temperature. but I've got them in. I'm going to put them in for probably 15 minutes. It said 10, but my fish is a little bit thicker, so at about 15, I'm going to start testing it for doneness. So it took about 22 minutes, but as I said, my fish is thick. I probably could have cut these in half, but I didn't. So I just took a brioche bun. I could have toasted it. I'm gonna take the smaller of the two pieces. I've got some American cheese, and I've tested the fish. It is done. They're registering in at about 140. I'm gonna top it with shredded lettuce. I bought the lettuce for one of the other dinners, and we don't eat it all. So this is what I kind of like to do when we have shredded lettuce, is I find something so I can justify buying it. I know it sounds silly, but my husband's also notorious for just, if it's left over, he'll make a salad out of it. So there's always those things you can do. But the next time you want a fish sandwich but don't want to go out somewhere, this is so simple. And in all honesty, I'm probably not going to have anything else to eat with it. This is enough. That fish sandwich is huge. And my husband's piece is just as big, if you can see it over here. It's really big too. So this is dinner tonight. We have other things. We've got chips. So I'm not worried about it. Thanks for joining me.